everybody to GLOBEBUSTERS.
We accept the reality of the world with which we're presented. It's as simple as that.
And welcome everybody to GLOBEBUSTERS. It is season 9. It is episode number 11. Arguments that don't hold weight. So welcome to the show, everybody. We got a special guest with us as well. He'll only be here for about the first 45 minutes or an hour, and then we'll be looking at some Glober arguments that never held weight, but certainly don't hold weight now, and need to be stopped from being processed and being professed around as if they are evidence of anything. They're not. And it's kind of embarrassing to keep having them come up and have people in debates keep thinking they have some sort of point when they clearly do not. So welcome to the show, everybody who's at YouTube. Thank you for joining us. We'll be here for about an hour, and then we will go over to Rockfin where we can talk a little bit more freely, and that shall be a good time. So let's start out with introducing those who are with me. We've got Zack, Good Times for All. Zachary Zabala is here in the house. Zack, how's it going, my friend?
Hey, not too bad, Jeran. That temperature kindly lightened up a little bit around here in the southeast, so it's been nice this week.
I wish I could say the same
80s,
thing.
mid 80s, somewhere around there. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's about 1:15 here, so it's not lighting up yet.
Ew.
It's not fun, but at least I hear the humidity's not as bad as other places. So I wouldn't know. I haven't really been to anywhere that I can think of that was real bad humidity. Well, Hawaii's pretty bad, but beyond that, not much. I hear Florida's bad. Is South Carolina the same way? How's the humidity there?
I think it was like in the 40s to 50s all throughout the week. So I mean,
Okay.
from where I'm from, that's not bad. I grew up right by Lake Michigan, where it's always like between 70 and 100. Just always. It was weird. I didn't know that humidity got down to like 30%, 40%, and that was considered average. I always thought it was like 50% or above, unless you were out in the desert.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I'm not one to. Yeah, I was totally shocked when I started traveling around the country and the humidity was just so low everywhere. It was weird.
Yeah, even near the ocean, I think. I mean, I don't think that it gets that high here, even if you're by the beach. So
Yeah, I know. I don't know what it is about Lake Michigan there. It's just because maybe the fresh water. I'm not sure, but it always evaporating around there. But yeah, Lake Michigan, it's a weird area up there.
yeah. All right. We also got Zero. Yeah, Iru Landucci from the land down under, over and across. Iru, welcome to the show.
Well, not too many axes, but yes, I'm here.
Welcome to the show. Nice to have you. We'll hopefully find out what
you.
you've been up to soon. We've got Troubling Tribune, Skylar in the house. Troubling. Or
What
do
is
you,
up, my friends?
What do you go by, Mr. Troubling? Or Mr.
Mr.
Tribune?
Tribune.
Mr. Tribune. All right. I'll get it right one day. I'll get it right. How are you, my friend? How's your week been?
Week has been busy, but a good one. I'm grateful to be here. And we just actually got off a TikTok debate a little bit earlier, so the topic is fresh in my mind.
Good. All right.
Those trenches.
I'm sure you heard a few of these debunked claims being pushed around. Let's go with Austin Whitsitt. Whitsitt Gets It is here, I believe.
How's it going?
Austin, how are you, my friend?
Pretty good. Super busy. Lots going on over here, but how are you?
Yes, I know you're in the process or looking to move or in the process of. And that's always, it's so rude the way that they do moving because they make it impossible on the person, right? Like you have to have a 30-day notice that you're leaving, but then nobody would actually look for a place because you can't look for a place until it's available. And it always seems like whenever I'm moving, there's always this 15-day period of time that's like the most stressful that there is, where you have to be out of this place, but you don't know where you're going.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. I don't really know what's gonna happen, but we'll see.
Okay, well, we can say a prayer for you, send some good wishes that you do have a place that you want to get in Florida, right? So if we can hope that you get the place you want, correct?
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right, we'll do that. Let's do that. And I'm sure you've never heard of any Glober arguments that are debunked at this point. Probably all factual based and full of proofs. No, I'm kidding, of course. Most of the arguments that we hear obviously hold no weight. So, and then last but not least, we've got a special guest joining us. His name is Brian. You guys may or may not know him. He's on Rockfin at the WBConspiracies channel, which is Whiskey and Beer Conspiracy Podcast. Brian, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's awesome. Now, you guys do a Flat Earth Fridays, right?
Yeah, I do a Flat Earth Friday live show, and that's on Rumble, Rockfin, and Twitch.
Okay, cool. You can just still Twitch. Yeah, so why don't you start out, tell a little bit about yourself and where people can find you, and then we'll get into some stuff.
Cool, yeah, man. Thanks again. I'll keep it brief so we can get rocking here. But yeah, one of 3 hosts of Whiskey, Beer, and Conspiracy Podcast. We're pretty much available on all podcasting platforms. We just had our Facebook group pulled down. We were locked out for 2 years, and they took it down for hate speech, so that's fun. Yeah, we have a website, WBConspiracies.com, and then WBCtavern.com. We got merch and hats and socks and special live editions. If you are part of the members group, it's $5 a month. But yeah, we record once a week, and we talk about conspiracies, true crime, some cryptids, some fun ones from time to time, and of course, Flat Earth. So excited to be here.
Very cool. When did you guys get into Flat Earth? What was the first? So there's a trio that does the hosting?
Yeah, a trio that does the hosting. I was the first one that really got into it, actually before we even started the show, and I started around 2016, 17. Mm-hmm. I was very fortunate because you could actually still find pro Flat Earth videos just on YouTube, so I had a plethora of information to gather from, and then for people getting into it now, I feel a little bit bad for them because it's something you got to really hunt and dig for.
Yeah, that was the old nice days, right?
Yeah,
back in the good old days.
You know, it would be interesting to see if we could have a parallel universe kind of thing where we could see where Flat Earth would be if it wasn't for YouTube's interjection and then shadow banning and, of course, removing it from Up Next and, what you would like or from personal suggestions. Because, yeah, I mean, our numbers have, I wouldn't say so much dropped as just much as everybody just froze. Like, you really don't gain any viewers anymore. You're basically preaching to the choir. But it would be curious to see where some channels would be, and I'm talking about myself mostly, because I've been stuck at that same number for now 3 years. So it would be interesting to see where we would have gone and where Flat Earth would have gone with all that good information out there, easy to search and find. You could search Flat Earth Horizon or Flat Earth Sunset or whatever and get something even close. And I've noticed that now, I'll actually show people this. Let me share a screen. So I've noticed that recently people have started noticing this mostly. Wait, what size is this? Generic. Okay. Hold on, I don't know if you're seeing the right thing here. Okay, good. I don't know if people have noticed this, but I have noticed that Globers have noticed it. At least Michael Sartain said something. He said the other day, he's like, oh, and it's really weird that when I search my debate with those flat earthers, you can't find anything. All you find is the authoritative sources. And it's like, yeah, well, what does that tell you, right? I mean, it should tell you something that you can't even search, for a video of any kind on YouTube that's flat earth related. If you try and put in, so let me move this over here so people can see it. If you try and put in flat earth, let's see here. Sorry, I don't know if you guys.
Yeah, maybe you need like a private window, maybe, to really, because if not, can take some of your preference search. If you want to test, what I mean.
Yeah, you mean like don't sign in?
No, don't sign in, but at least open a...
Oh, private window. Got you. Okay,
yeah, private window. Thank you. My pronunciation is...
No, it's good.
Private. Private.
I think that the other day...
Yes, that was proposed in 2019. I think you remember.
Yeah.
The House of Representatives in the United States with Mrs. Down.
Right. When she was speaking of Wojcinski or whatever?
Yeah, exactly. And then that was transferred to the Nobel Prize in 2020 in Chile, in South America. And the opening, one of the hosts say, we must kill the magical thinking behind the flat earth movement.
Right.
Directly.
Yeah, imagine that, right? So let me show you this. That's not helping either. 1 second. I had it here, but now I don't have it. No. Okay. So I'm going to show you this, and we're just going to look at YouTube, and let's go to a private window like Ear said. I agree with that. Let's go with new incognito window. All right. So we're just going to YouTube here, and we're going to be searching just a couple flat earth terms and just to show. And yeah, if you're somebody, even if you're a mainstream person, I don't know if Michael Sartain is considered mainstream, but if you put, flat earth sunset, just because we want to start looking, say you're somebody new and you want to start, here you go. It's going to be debunking flat earth in 45 seconds. Flat earth debate with Dan Cummins. This is not a debate. This is a comedian saying
There are people being convinced by conspiracy theorists while listening to them on satellite radio that the Earth is flat.
It's not even funny. Flat Earth proven by independent research. Again, it's a joke. These are all just joke articles, joke videos, debunking. Debunk the funk, Flat Earth sunsets debunked. So again, and then you get into these ones, and it's always these same videos, right? So it's just, and no matter what you put in here, if we put, okay, instead of Flat Earth sunset, we want Flat Earth horizon, you basically get identical videos. So this is what they've done, and this is how they keep, if you're somebody who's new to this subject, what's going to happen? If you search Flat Earth horizon, and this is your results, chances are you're going to click on one of these. Just the way it goes, right?
I don't think they're seeing it in
Oh, you're right. I didn't transfer this over there yet. My bad. There you go. Now they can see it.
There we go.
Sorry about that. So anyway, I was just showing we put in Flat Earth and it was nothing. And Flat Earth Horizon, it's the same videos basically. I think this one wasn't there before. Now it's there. But again, this is going to, for most people, they're going to end up clicking on one of these. And you wonder why new channels on this subject like this one here is just getting pushed. Look at 585,000 views. There's not a Flat Earth video that's gotten that many views in 4 years.
Yeah, that Dave guy will not debate anybody too. He just pulls obscure Flat Earth videos off the internet and makes fun of them.
Oh, McKeegan, this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's like such a story what's happened with him because you saw him. He's a photographer, right? And he was not getting. Let's actually go to his videos and see here if we can get his channel. And he gets, he gets ads by all these.
I've been experimenting.
Stop it. And it's very creepy. Him and his little dog. I think it's very creepy, personally. But again, if we go back in time here and we look at what he was doing before. So let's go back here. So, I mean, there you go. What does X zoom? 1,000 views, 1.2 thousand views, 4.5 thousand views. Retrieve lost photos, 870 views, 852 views. Not getting a ton of views, 2.7, 4,000, 2,000, 9,000. But now watch what happens as he starts to venture into the flat Earth topic. Let's see what the first one that he does is. Looks like this one. So photographer examines if NASA moon photos are fake, 122,000. Now all of a sudden he's starting to get some more views, but he's back to 9,000, then does another debunking Gary Fong, who's a photographer who says that clearly the moon landing is fake. But this one he got 109,000 views. Then he goes back to camera doing, and he's got 2.3 thousand. Then he goes back here, 7.7. Now he goes back to the moon, 77,000 views. Then he goes to 33,000 views, goes back to photography, 4,000 views, 4,000 views. Then goes to Flat Earth, 585, 625, 61, 897. So what do you think he's going to be doing now? Now he's just going to stay there. 855, 105, 461, 193, 133, 153.
And why would he make another video about cameras?
Correct.
Look, he hasn't made one about cameras since then.
This guy is amazing. I didn't know him, but yeah, man. I mean, from photographer to astrophysicist in one day. That must be the next tutorial from the course, the new course. Yeah.
It's all part of his photography lessons, I guess. Yeah, and it's just, and none of his arguments are even good. Basically, what he does, and this is why I've said it a million times how easy it is they just read the mainstream articles, and it's the equivalent of, again, us seeing a guy run out of a bank. He's wearing a black hoodie, wearing a mask, carrying a bag with a dollar sign on it, and there he goes running away. And here's all of us flat earthers yelling, hey, guys, look, that guy just stole money from that bank. That guy just robbed that bank. And it would be the equivalent of all these Globers running up to the guy who robbed the bank and saying, excuse me, sir, did you rob a bank? And he would be like, no. He'd be like, are you sure you didn't rob a bank? No. Okay, we thought so. And then coming back and telling all of us we're idiots because he clearly didn't rob a bank because they went and asked him. That's what these guys do. We say NASA's faking things. What do? They go to NASA and get NASA's explanation for things. So it's like, well, yeah, we're telling you that they are not honest, that they're deceiving you, that they're pulling a hoax. And if you go to them for their answer, what do you think it's going to be? Do you really think you're going to go to NASA and say, hey, these guys say that you wouldn't have been able to have batteries last as long as you did on the moon, or you wouldn't be able to be in communication like you were, or you wouldn't be able to go from 250 negative to 250 positive temperature
Oh,
wise.
you caught us.
Right.
You caught us.
You're right. Damn it. Yeah, tell them
Never
that they
going to
win.
come out of their mouth. Never.
Never.
Well,
So we
it's
should
like the
expect
FBI investigating the FBI. If there's any corruption in the FBI, we promise there's no corruption in the FBI because we're the FBI.
Oh man, it's so stupid. And it's like the FOIA requests. I mean, I get it. Some things have come out in FOIA requests. I don't know if those things were planted to come out on purpose, which they do, right? I mean, it makes a lot of sense that if you have a bunch of people looking into your actions, that you would release a couple documents so that they go off on that tangent or that they think they found something. It's why I think Bart Seibel got his photo or his video of them faking the moon landing, so that NASA always knew people would be suspect of the moon landing. So what do? You put out some information that clearly debunks the moon landing, but holds on to orbits. And I think that's brilliant. It's this way, anybody who finds the evidence of Bart Seibel and finds that those guys clearly were not 150,000 miles from Earth, and they were actually close to the Earth, that what it does is it does disprove the moon landing, but it saves orbits. And so they put that out there, in my opinion, on purpose. If you have that big of a deception, I don't think you accidentally leave things in videotapes that you send to guys doing clearly documentaries on your faking the moon landing. And it's just, oops, we accidentally gave him the evidence that we didn't go to the moon. But again, what it does is it re-solidifies orbits, and I think people, they want people to generally, if you're not going to believe in the moon landing, at least still believe in orbits. So
Is he on a break or something? Is 2 months his last video?
No. Sorry, I need to scroll up more. No, he's been doing them all the time. 4 days ago. Why July 8th does not prove the Earth is flat? Huh? Flat Earthers claim the ISS is really a plane. I mean, who's claimed that? I don't know anybody that's claimed that it's a plane. Why are there no flat Earth surveyors? There are flat Earth surveyors. We have several of them that have been on the show.
Chris Van Matre.
Chris Van Matre, there you go. Debunking claims the ISS is underwater. Debunking 2 claimed accurate flat Earth models. What? Yeah, I mean, the guy just basically makes things up completely. And again, goes to the mainstream explanation for things and then calls it truth. So what are you going to do? It is definitely a problem. And then we've also got, speaking of claims that are not true, that's one person that does a good job of it. But yeah, I mean, just seeing his numbers is not surprising now. He will never go back and make one of these videos that gets, 1.2 thousand views. And how many subs does he have now? I didn't see. Did you guys see? Let's see. He's got 84,000. I don't know what he was at when he started his little kick about the flat Earth, but now all of a sudden he thinks he's an expert because he can sit there with his dog and read from NASA websites, which, again, this is the thing, right? It makes people think they're smart. It gives people that out that, like, okay, well, if I'm not smart and I haven't studied anything, as long as I just read from NASA's website and I proclaim things to be true that are scientific, well, then I can really never be called stupid, and I never can be called wrong. Because everything I believe is what science tells me. And if we do change something, well, then we change it. And then we say, well, thank goodness for science that they changed our belief about something. So we see this all the time. Let's see here what I've got. This page. Yeah, so what I wanted to talk about really was, I guess we only have you for the first 45 minutes, right? So we're already 25 minutes in. Brian, if you want to tell us, a little bit about, what you guys have seen flat Earth wise, evidence that you think is strong or evidence you hear. Do you guys do any debates, or have you gone, do you have to hear a lot of, bullshit from Globers, obviously?
We've tried to do debates. I've offered a debate to probably 60 people thus far. The only person we had a debate scheduled with was MC Toon. And I actually canceled it the week after what he did to Moral Bob. Live on his channel, because 1, it was a pure publicity stunt, and 2, I think it was intellectually dishonest what he did, and he put someone's family at danger because he doxed the guy live with his address. It's still on his website, and I told him, I was like, dude, out of safety for my family, I'm not debating you, and I thought it was really wrong what he did. But yeah, we've tried to debate other people, but no one's accepted it yet. Hopefully, I can get on Modern Day Debates one of these days with maybe Witsit or somebody. And go that route. But, I think my favorite one, especially because I'm in construction, right? I'm a journeyman electrician out here in Kansas. And I understand how things are built, and which is why kind of when we were talking, Jeran, we were talking about the force the line test. It's not an experiment, but a test that's been proposed, and it just makes sense and in my head because he's proposing, horizontally leveling steel I-beams across 2, 3, 4, 5 miles. I know in the real world, I mean we all do in the real world, we know that material is so rigid it will never bend ever. There's only level and plumb, and that's it. And if you look at something even in the construction world, like a plumb bob disproves full culture pendulum on its face. I know I've heard that some people still use full culture pendulum as proof.
It's a good one to start with, yeah. But the problem with that one is, of course, that number one is nobody claimed it. So when you have Einstein saying that there's no optical experiment that can prove that the Earth moves, he clearly knew about the Foucault's pendulum. So the problem with the Foucault's pendulum is you can never determine whether that movement is a result of the Earth moving or the sky moving around the Earth. They both would translate the same motion to the pendulum. And I think people get confused anyway, because if so I guess the string hanging from a Foucault's pendulum is supposed to be on some apparatus that would not be affected by the actual device moving around in a circle, right?
Yeah, gimbal.
Okay. Yeah, right, something like that. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, they say that the angular momentum of the Earth, that when you hang it, it's just matching that angular momentum perfectly. So it's effectively still, and it's going to require additional movement to change it. And I think you should switch out the optical experiment quote with the terrestrial experiment, because Einstein said no terrestrial experiment can detect the motion. I mean, that's better than optical. You can't really weasel your way out of that. That means nothing on the Earth can be done.
Correct.
He said both of them, but
so he said both quotes? That's where I'm not making that up.
Yeah, he said
Yeah,
both.
and I think also mechanic. I have a book saying there is no mechanical experiment that can prove that the Earth is moving.
Okay, so mechanical,
Nice.
terrestrial,
Mechanical.
and optical.
I mean, I'm like, I'll say with the pendulum thing, I don't know, man. Like, I do agree that it takes a lot of just granting them, begging the question, because they say that when they drop the pendulum, I guess the argument would be that you're saying it should basically move on its own, but they're claiming that when you do that, what's happening is it's just automatically in line with the angular momentum of the Earth.
So it wouldn't
which
move,
is
you're saying.
it's certainly a stretch, and it can't be tested. But that's what they say. Is the real question is, does it actually not process at all at the equator? And then, like Jeran said, I mean, is it the sky that's affecting it?
Yeah, and that's what, Austin and I had talked about doing a challenge. We just don't know who would accept it. But we're both under the assumption that if you went to the equator and did a Foucault's pendulum, you would certainly see deviation. And we base that basically on the fact that we see deviation everywhere, and we don't believe that the Earth is a spinning ball in space. And the only way that you would not see any deviation at the equator with the Foucault's pendulum would be if we're completely wrong about the sky being what's translating that motion, because the sky wouldn't be able to stop at the equator and basically stop translating motion. So to us, we think that you would still see a deviation from the straight line of the plane of the swing, even if you're on the equator. Is that correct, Austin? Would you say?
Well, there's actually many options. I mean, there's many ways to look at it. There's rotation and counter rotation, like a vortex and anti-vortex within magnetic fields. So it's possible that we have like a vortex and an anti-vortex. I would be surprised. I would in no way expect it to match exactly what the globe claims, because as far as I can tell, this was created in 1851. So it probably doesn't match, and that's why in the South there's like no. I'm all that to say I'm not staking the flag in a definitive. It will continue in one direction. It will never be less or anything like that, because there's actually many different geometric manifestations of the motion that could happen. It's not as simple as like a whirlpool over top of you. It's like a breathing in and out vortex, toroid. So that this actually would create different things depending on how far away you are. So it actually would be based on your angle to the vortex. So anyway,
Gotcha.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just
and remember the Alice effect also.
Yeah, that'd be another thing to test. That would be the Alias effect, which, and by the way, we'll get into that, but McToon, or MC Toon, has a page on his website where he lists all these flat Earth problems. But one of those is I believe, exactly that the alias effect, he says, or the Elias effect, whatever you want to call it, has never been duplicated. But the actual truth is everybody who's tried it has duplicated it. So even NASA themselves, I think, has admitted that there was anomalies, there was direction change.
I have videos from
Okay.
Spain, for example. Yeah.
Good. Showing that there definitely is something that happens during eclipses that affects the Foucault's pendulum, correct?
Yeah,
Yes,
which
on
correlates.
the sun eclipse.
Yeah, what's so interesting is Elias also is the one that re-looked at Dayton Miller's experiments, where when
Right.
he changed altitude, when he went higher up, the Michelson-Morley had different results. It was changing based on altitude and time of the year, the equinoxes. So it's clearly coming from the sky.
Yeah, it
over
can't
shape
be.
of
How would they
Earth.
explain that on the Earth? Do they even try to explain it, or just call it an anomaly?
No, it's nothing but nuance. Because I mean, you can't explain that. You can't change the
Instrumental
altitude
error.
to be the same.
I laugh at this pendulum here because this is the one that people remember if you've been watching GlobeBusters for a while. On Amazon, you can find, or maybe it's even here, you can find the documentation, which is a PDF. Oh, here we go. This PDF is for this Foucault's pendulum. And we went through it one time, and it's hilarious because it basically tells you to start the plane of the swing and then to look at where it is and then to adjust it based on what it should be until it swings at the path that it should be, and then you have your Foucault's pendulum. It's like, no, then that's not proof of anything. You're saying let it swing, and then when it will adjust or it will be off plane some direction, then you figure out where it's supposed to be, and then there's like a little. Let me see if it shows the fine tuning screw. There's a little fine tuning screw that you can adjust until you get it correct. But I'll see if I can find that. Mounting the pendulum. Anyway, there is a little screw in there. It's called a fine tuning screw, to where you would just keep adjusting it, which would keep causing the plane of the swing to change until you have the one that is in the correct direction. I'll see if I can find it here somewhere. But has anyone ever seen a Foucault's pendulum in person? I've never.
Yeah,
Well, you have
I went to the Griffin Observatory, and as soon as you enter into the main hall, you have a pendulum, of course with the motor on top, for example. And then in my city in Argentina, we are a Masonic city, and of course, if you go to the Science Museum, you have another pendulum there.
And what is their excuse that it proves? I mean, does it say that like on a plaque? This proves the curvature. I mean, this
Yes,
kind of
there is a plaque, but you can also see, in some cases at least, you can see the motor that is moving, and always there is a guy that you can talk, and he's going to tell you that, because I talk with him, he's going to tell you that, well, but the pendulum is constantly moving by a motor or rotor, I don't know how you say, and blah, blah, blah. But of course, the guy, he just read Wikipedia in the cell phone, just trying to explain something to you. It's the same thing.
right?
Yeah, I saw the one at the Chicago Museum of Science and Industry. They had one, but both times I went there, it was never moving. It was just hanging there.
No, it wasn't moving at all.
It wasn't moving at all.
It's like
it
they
was,
didn't even
It was
have-
just hanging there.
'Cause
They
they
didn't
forgot to
even
turn it on.
fire it up.
Yeah, they all have these. Basically, here's a good picture of one, if you can see here on the screen. That as the pendulum is swinging, there is a device located underneath, supposedly pushing the whatever that would call the ball bearing.
That is the other method. Yeah, you have like two methods, like a big magnetic movement on bottom, or you have the a rotor on the top.
Okay, right. Either one of those. Trying to see.
Or
where I
you
found
can have a Jesuit pushing.
it. They lay
all day
they lay
long.
down underneath there and just blow every time it goes by.
Yeah,
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah.
he's covered like a civil guy.
Yeah, my question is, why don't they have a gyroscope at the entrance, a big giant gyroscope at the entrance of every science museum that says, pay attention to this now. In a few hours when you leave, it'll be in this many hours, it'll process this, far. And this proves the Earth is moving.
Good point. I have not seen him do that.
Don't you think, like, say the story is 1851, they came up with this pendulum, and the story goes with eyewitness testimony, which is like one of the strongest pieces of evidence in court, by the way, if they're credible. They're like, it went the wrong way the first time, then it didn't do what it was supposed to the second time, and then we messed with it. As soon as we got it to look like it's kind of going the right way, we called it a day.
We had everybody come in, all the newspapers, take a picture real quick, get out of here.
That's what the eyewitness says. And we went to church the next day and talked about how we proved the earth spins and how we verified what they were saying, the church. And then what I was wondering is, think about this. If you found out some creative way to detect the motion of the earth, which we all know, you can't do that, you would immediately be like, bro, let's go all along these latitudes. Let's go to the equator and keep going. And let's map it all the way out. Let's map that it goes one direction, then it does literally nothing at the equator, then it goes the other way. That would be one of the first things you did. It's been almost 200 years, bro, and no university, nothing. No one's ever done it.
Well, it reminds me too, and I was trying to draw connections on Friday, but we can talk about this on the other side, that it mirrors a lot of what's going on medically. It's kind of the same idea where what would be very simple is a test that shows somebody who has had the magical sauce inserted inside them, and then you do another group of children that have not had magical sauce inside them, and then you just
mean a double-blind study?
Yeah. And then you just look at both results, and you could even show people, well, look, this is clearly beneficial for this reason, but they've never done that. And so it's the same kind of thing. That should lead you, if you're a thinking person, and this is what I think people have lost the ability to do, is think on your own. It's okay to think to yourself, well, why wouldn't they have that test? And then to make a conclusion based on that thought. But people can't do that. People will be like we talked about earlier, right? They'll run and ask the WHO or somebody, why is there? Oh, well, then they'll have a million reasons why not. Well, yeah, you just went to the deceivers. Well, what do you think is going to happen? So it's kind of the same exact thing. Go ahead, Brian.
One of the most effective ways to spot deception is to look for omission.
Yeah.
Right. So it's lie by omission. We've all heard that. Mm-hmm. Someone will be telling you a story, and you're like, wait a minute, though, you're skipping steps. It's how you know they're lying.
Right.
So ironically, why would they lie? Why would they omit is very applicable to the globe deception, and you'll find it everywhere. There are tests that just will never be done, and it's because they can't be done. And so they're just tactically omitted.
And I'm going to stop looking at this. I can't see where well, they're calling it here adjustments for, when changing the suspension string, care should be taken to make sure you mount the mounting bracket, whatever. But then it talks about if the amplitude of the pendulum has not been adjusted accurately, then the plane of the pendulum can precess either too quickly or too slowly. For precision measurements, the ideal amplitude is determined by observing the precession of the plane of oscillation. So it's basically telling you to observe it based on what it does, then adjust it to a certain position and keep going until it's what you have, until what you expect. And they'll blame everything, right? Oh, well, it could be because you're out leaning. It could be because there's too much weight on this side. It could be solar energy coming through the window. Whatever it is, you can just change the excitation of this thing, and you can adjust this screw, and then you can fix it. So,
and especially you didn't uncharge the balls and all the. I mean,
right.
It's not in isolate chamber. It's. It's like the Cavendish experiment. Could be so many things that make the pendulum go to one way or the other way, or it's something impossible for me. I mean, to trying to use that in our days,
right? Because you couldn't eliminate all the forces, like you're saying, right?
Of the Earth.
Oh, and this says right here, for longer periods of observation, the gradual damping of the oscillation can be compensated for by means of an electromagnetic boost that can be adjusted to an arbitrary value. Whatever. All right. Well, that's one thing. Another thing go ahead.
Can I ask real quick?
Please.
I just wanted to pose a question for the panel here, and if anybody has an answer, or especially like Witsit with his giant brain that he has. Love your stuff too, by the way, brother.
No homo.
Is it? Yeah. No. Does anybody know of a claimed refutation of why a plumb bob does not replicate what a so-called full-called pendulum does? Because I know specifically in my industry, like we rely on a plumb bob to not move, to find a plumb off of a point on the ground or frame up door frames, or there's so many things you can use it for, but
what
we
they're
rely
saying
on it
is,
to not move.
Right. What they're saying is that if they were to in a Foucault's pendulum just leave the bob hanging there, that it would not start moving, right? They're not claiming that that's what's happening, that it's because of the movement of the Earth that's causing the pendulum to move. They're saying that once you start a pendulum, so if you took, again, according to them, if you took a wrecking ball or something like that and pulled it back and then released it, that it would start swinging on that plane, but then technically speaking, they would say that the Earth is starting to move underneath it, and so that plane is going to appear to us to be changing its direction. Even though, technically speaking, according to them, in space, the pendulum would continue swinging in that same plane with no change. Well, I'll let Austin ask you. Maybe he understood the question better.
Well, yeah. So like, okay. So what they would be saying for both situations, the pendulum or the plumb, is that you drop it straight down, and we perceive that as vertical locally, but on this giant ball, it's actually tilted to the center of the ball. You just can't tell. It looks vertical, and it's gonna look like it's stationary because as soon as you drop it and it's in equilibrium, it's already moving with the Earth in perfect balance with its angular momentum. So as soon as you drop that pendulum or plumb bob, it's just going to already be moving at the perfect angular momentum that matches the Earth, so that it will be, for all intents and purposes, stationary, that you won't be able to tell. And that to be able to find the difference, you have to then take it and like basically introduce the motion into a plane of motion. And then over time, since you've now created a different plane of motion, basically going against the Earth's motion, that the Earth will slowly cause it to process underneath it. It's an unfalsifiable claim. I mean, they're basically, in order to prove, quote unquote, that the Earth is moving, they have to treat it as if it's entirely stationary at first. And I promise it works. Trust me. It's just the way it is.
But Austin, where I'm confused is that because I don't believe, and I don't think I have this wrong, they don't claim that the Coriolis force is due to the fact of the Earth spinning underneath the atmosphere, because their belief is that the atmosphere moves with the Earth lockstep. So that's not really the claim. The claim of Coriolis force is that if you're throwing a ball from the equator north, that you're throwing it from a place that's moving 1,000 miles per hour to a place that's clearly going less speed than that, and that's why it has deviation, right? Going north, it would deviate to the right because it's going to be, you're throwing it from a place going 1,000 miles per hour to a place that's going 999, whatever. So wouldn't that be the case of the Foucault's pendulum then, that if they believe that the atmosphere is moving lockstep with the Earth, then why would the Foucault's pendulum not stay with the atmosphere that's moving it? Does that make sense?
They're just saying that you're going to detect a slight deviation from introducing that other motion. Okay. So like the reason that it's in lockstep with the Earth in the first place is because the atmosphere is supposedly, which is funny because, by the way, that's physically impossible as well. But and that's not even what the model claims. They pick and choose. But so like the whole atmos is moving with the Earth.
Right.
So that's why the pendulum, when it's just hanging there, can be considered stationary because it's actually moving.
Right.
But since the atmos and the Earth are all moving together, but then you introduce a totally new motion in a plane that's effectively perpendicular to that spin. And then what's going to happen is that new motion is going to kind of be detaching it from that reference frame of the air. You see what I'm saying? Like if I throw a baseball through the air. Yeah. So it's like, it's interesting because it's almost contradictory with all their other claims. And there's nearly no almost like when you fly planes at high altitudes and stuff.
Right.
But that's just the way the globe is, bro. You pick and choose. So I hope that makes sense.
It must be nice. Must be.
Yeah, I mean,
Austin, didn't you talk about this when you debated MC Toon and you were asking about why is it not in its own independent reference frame, and he was claiming that the Foucault's pendulum is, even though it's still attached to the Earth?
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. They get to this like double speak moment, but he knew that I was gonna dunk back on him with all the other globe claims if he staked his flag, but. So yeah, like that's the whole point of that little gimbal is to establish an independent frame of reference. So it's like, okay, well, if it's an independent frame of reference, it should move just sitting there, but it wouldn't be a lot. But there would be vibrational displacement from the fact that it creates an independent reference frame. It would move just sitting there. Just wouldn't be much. They just say, nuh-uh, it matches the angular momentum perfectly, and then they don't address the true independent reference frame part. So in that sense, yes, you're correct, but that's like a hyper technical point, and when I really looked at all the math of it, it wouldn't be a ton. So it's just difficult. I mean, they have this safe gray area with that, but yeah, that's what I used to always try to get the Globers to answer is if the gimbal is establishing independent frame of reference, then why is it not moving independent of the Earth?
This is only a 2-minute video. Let's just watch it, see if kind of looks like they might explain it a little bit better, but let's see if it makes any sense. Here we go. Wait, can you guys hear it or not? Let me see.
A Foucault pendulum is simply
Yes,
a
yes, we can.
pendulum which can oscillate freely in any plane. So that even if we rotate the stand, the plane of the pendulum remains stationary. Imagine a person rotating with the stand. With respect to us, the plane of the pendulum is stationary and it is the person who is rotating. But with respect to the person, he himself and the stand is stationary. So, it must be the plane of the pendulum that is rotating.
They're not going to address what he said.
This
No, I
They'll
don't
never,
fact can be observed even if
well,
we
they'll
don't.
never address it because there's not an answer. I'm like, there isn't an answer to what he said. Like,
Right.
the gimbal creates an independent frame of reference. So if the Earth is moving, but it's independent of the gimbal, which is what independent frame of reference means, then there should be some displacement just by the mere fact that it's its own frame of reference.
Right. So doesn't that kind of tell us that it's definitely the sky?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Some things like seem so
But
easy, and
then
you're like,
this
oh,
is
that
their
can't be that
out.
easy.
This is their out. When I looked at the numbers are not a lot. So a lot of flat earthers will make that argument and think that it should be the full precession amount and stuff. And
No, it's not.
you wouldn't even ever have to start it. That's incorrect.
Right.
It would be a much bigger value once you start it, because now you're introducing a new motion perpendicular to the Earth, and so now you're going to get that deviation, and you're going to have a much more noticeable deviation, as opposed to the independent frame of reference without it moving. It could go left or right. It's just going to be that it's independent and it has like free movement basically.
Right.
So it can move either way. So it wouldn't just be able to sit there still, but it would be very hard. Like the reason I stopped making that a huge argument is because like I don't even know how much it would be for sure. It's debatable, and how would you measure it? And it's tough. Technically, it would not be able to sit there still, which would nullify the entire initial value of the test.
Right.
So it's a good argument. It's still true. It's just I've been in the trenches, so I know where they end up boiling it
Where it
down to,
goes
and they
to.
have this little gray area that they hide in with that. So
Well, Brian, go ahead if you have anything else. I know we're already running short on time with you, but you could ask some questions if you have them, or make some statements, or whatever you need to do.
Yeah, I got a few more minutes. My son's still sleeping, so we're on his timeline.
Gotta love naps.
Yeah. I want to say that I did share something in the Rockfin chat for later if anybody's interested in it. It just came from something I found, aerostudents.com. It's basically an aerospace engineering website from the Delft University of Technology in the Netherlands. And it's a PDF. It's linked. It's literally the exact same thing from the derivation and definition of linear aircraft model from NASA. It just says the exact same thing. The assumptions they make in 1.1.2. There's a flat Earth, a non-rotating Earth. There are no rotating masses. Gyroscopic effects can be ignored. And I've always heard this, that their claim to that is we just have to simplify the math, so we just assume the Earth is flat and stationary, non-rotating, all that stuff.
Right.
Right? And my question would be, so then you should be able to still provide a complex equation with all of the extra things that they would have to add, like the Earth rotating, the wobble, the tilt. You should be able to still show that in some type of equation, but I've yet to see one for myself. And I don't know if anyone's ever even asked that, because we actually shared a similar video of that on our Instagram, and we got a private DM from an MSNBC reporter who was going to do a fact check about it, and which they did. And they wrote an article about it, and they asked a couple of aerospace engineering teachers out here. I think one was in Kansas State University, and he said, I really don't care what the Earth does underneath the airplane, so we don't have to assume, the spin of the Earth, the curve of the Earth, the wobble, the tilt, because flat Earth is really stupid and dumb. We just have to use it to make the equation work in real life. And so I would be interested to see if we were to bring that to the debate of this, like, well, can you just show me the complex equation that actually does provide all of the other things that you say is required to make this work in reality?
Right. Well, thank you. You said you put that in the Rockfin chat?
Yeah, it's in the Rockfin chat.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I've got lots more, and we can look at MC Tunes channel. But one thing I didn't know if you guys saw that I thought was pretty cool, or at least surprising, is I'm sure you've seen all these images a million times. We always see them, boats floating in the sky. And I've heard this used for, like, this is evidence of looming, and this is evidence of why we see things over the curve that shouldn't be there. And they'll say, you know, like in this image here, if we can see this boat here, then clearly Mount Canigou, which is way supposed to be below the curve, is being lifted up and shown here. And again, it's just, I've talked to Andrew Young, who's a atmospheric scientist, and I said, isn't it true that all these boats are sitting on water? And he said, of course they're sitting on water. And I said, no, but I mean, in these images, they're sitting on water. And he's like, oh, yeah, I think that's the general belief, is that you're seeing a false horizon. I'm like, okay, well, why are you allowing all these websites, news reports, everything, calling things a Fata Morgana? For instance, here, Fata Morgana, amazing trick. This is a Daily Mail article calling this a Fata Morgana. Whoops, where did I go? I don't know where I just went. Daily Mail, here it is. Calling this a Fata Morgana, which is clearly not. And it's always been so frustrating to me. It's like, man, this is one of the biggest signs that we're being lied to, is when something so obvious as this. It says, you know, here, 3 cruise ships appear to be hovering off the coast of Cyprus in an amazing trick of the light, which makes it seem like they're floating in midair above the water. The bizarre optical illusion has made a trio of vessels look like they're flying above the horizon, the phenomenon known as a Fata Morgana. So this is not a Fata Morgana. Now, what I saw recently that I thought was crazy is here's Metabunk, and we know that they are a terrible site who just promotes globe propaganda the whole time. At least they admit what this is. They even say hovering ship, Fata Morgana, or mirage, or false horizon, and they show this is what happens during a Fata Morgana, that you've got a reflection in the layer above it, and the boat flips upside down and shows you a reverse image. And then they show this, which is an inferior mirage, where you get the reflection of the boat below it, but also this is also a false horizon. I'll show you why. Now they're saying now this, and then they'll admit it, is a false horizon. So they go through and show by changing the values, you can see that in every one of these cases, these boats are all clearly sitting on water, which just goes to show you, amongst other things, that the horizon, which in this image would be considered here, and in this image here, and in this image here, is never a real spot. It's not an actual place. It is an apparent position, and it changes and can be too low, can be too high. It can be all over the place. So we should be able to eliminate at this point any evidence that the Globers use that are in reference to a horizon. They want to show a horizon and say, oh, when we condense pictures that shows curve, what difference does it make if the horizon is not a real thing? And now we clearly know it's not.
It to be.
Right. Their math says that there should be an edge of the globe.
That's the one I was going to bring up. Yeah, it's the crux of the whole thing. It's the horizon.
Mm-hmm.
Their argument is so bad with the horizon in 2023, it's just over. You know, like first the horizon's the curve of the Earth. Now we never see the actual curve of the Earth. So we never see the geometric horizon. We only see the apparent one. So then they say, but you couldn't have one unless the Earth was a globe and there was a geometric horizon.
Which is clearly not true.
For a new argument.
Wait, so they say that you wouldn't have a horizon if the Earth was flat?
Yeah, that's their 2023 argument.
Oh,
it's gotten so bad that they all say
one.
that, all of them. So, and this is because you say, wait, we never see the geometric horizon, i.e. the curve of the Earth, and how'd you know it was there in the first place? So they had to find something to respond to that with, because I started asking everyone that. And then they get in their like little secret groups and they try and like figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And so then they came back and their answer is, well, we know that there's a geometric horizon because that's required to have the apparent horizon. And you wouldn't have one on a flat Earth.
It's so dumb because, and I've told the story, I think I've read it in Abizaid's book back, early 1900s, where he's talking about being at a train station. And he says, if you're at a train station reading a train schedule, but it's a very foggy day, that you can only see yourself holding the train station schedule. But because the fog is so dense that you can't see beyond that. And then other people are there at the train station also reading their train schedule, and they also can only see themselves. He said, but we know that as the fog goes away, we're going to be able to see further and further and further, and life is the same way. That we just get this atmospheric blockage, which happens because atmosphere added together over time, over distance, is going to always create an opaque barrier for you to be able to see. This is why we say you'll never see further than 1,000 miles or so, because you're going to always get that bulk of the atmosphere in there. But yeah, to say then, obviously, I mean, if the Earth were flat as could be, just a level Home Depot as far as the eye could see, you would have a horizon. So
you have to be like actually retarded to not know that, right? I mean, this is the first and only thing you should talk to McToon about, in my opinion. You should like I had that dude screaming and full on spiraling with Kai in a debate about this because this is the whole debate. Let's talk about neurons, neutrinos under the ground. No. If the horizon's not the curve of the Earth, it's provably not. You wouldn't have a horizon on a flat Earth is the most retarded thing I've heard probably ever. It's the horizon where the sky appears to meet the ground. So on a flat Earth, would it be all sky or all ground? Right. So then they don't have an answer for that. Then they change it to, oh, well, there would be a horizon, but it would never be a distinct hard line. It would be like a fuzzy little blurry area that blends into each other. Oh, you mean like what we see on the Earth? And even when we look over the ocean and we think there's a hard cutoff, zoom in on it, there's a gradient that's fuzzy of where it's blending in. Because when I went out and I did all my observations, that's what I knew. I discovered that the horizon's never a distinct line. It looks like that over water, and we do have like that reflective effect that at times will create that illusion. Zoom in, zoom all the way in on it. You're going to see this gradient that's really blurry blending into each other. So then I show them that, and I say, okay, so you said if the Earth were flat, you wouldn't have a distinct cutoff. So it would only be this blurry, fuzzy area. Here's what we always see on the Earth. So by your own standards, the Earth is flat then.
Right.
And they've yet to respond. They drop out of calls. So just ask McToon that because I'm still waiting for an answer.
Yeah, definitely ask him that. I want to ask also, just talking about what Metabunk is showing here, that clearly they're saying that the line that we see is often lowered, right? So this is what we actually see. Nothing is actually raised. So the whole idea of, super looming and all these things, yeah, maybe a Fata Morgana when the boat is upside down. By the way, there is a video of a Fata Morgana, which is the only time you can actually claim that it is one, is when you actually see the, I thought it was down here somewhere, when you actually see the boat flip upside down. Maybe it's right here.
It'd be funny is if they, at like some point, someone claimed that the Fata Morgana is just like a picture of someone at the equator saying that, like, yeah, see, there's a ship upside down. Like, I wouldn't put it past them to somebody like to claim that.
No, I wouldn't put it past them either. Let's see here. There was a Fata Morgana video in here somewhere, and it's basically just a boat traveling out on the ocean. The guy's looking from his house, and it looks like it's upside down. Oh, here it is. This one right here.
You see all the horizons are blurry, bro?
Yeah, they're all a mess. Here's a Fata Morgana. If you ever want to see a real one, this is what you would see. So you can see how in the 1700s, 1800s, if somebody was looking out at the ocean and saw something like this, that would look like a floating ship in the sky. And all that's happening here is this is a reflection of the boat that's below it on the ocean, and you're seeing a reflection in the layer above. But everything else is just actual, here. This is not the horizon, as they would tell you. The horizon is behind the boat, right? So that means that what we're seeing is being lowered. Nothing is being raised up. We're not seeing anything from behind any curves. Not that anybody ever believed that refraction could do that anyway. That's just something they believe. So yeah,
we go down. Let's go down just a little bit. Let's describe. So what's happening on a flat Earth then?
Okay.
So this boat is on the water.
Right.
Okay, and you have your eye level. So then you have what's called propagation and reception angles from the light, all the information that we're seeing that is the boat. We're losing resolvability towards that convergence point at eye level, right near where that boat is, right? So we're losing resolvability of the water as it gets closer to the eye level. That's why we don't see it there.
Right.
That's why we don't see it.
Is that because of a reduced angle?
It only works on a flat Earth.
Is it because of a reduced angle? Like, I guess where somebody might have a question is if this is just from a reduced angle, then would it happen every time? I guess that's my question. Does it happen every time we look at the ocean? So, for instance, anytime you go out there, you're always going to see that hard line, but know that there's more water behind it?
No, well, okay. So we have the primary thing is resolvability, right?
Okay.
But then you have conditions on top of that act like a lens.
Right.
So they exaggerate the effects. They exaggerate the resolvability either way, depending on the conditions. It's like throwing on glasses.
Right.
So that's it. It only works on a flat Earth. It's goofy that we're debating this in 2023.
It is goofy, but this is kind of my goal. Is like I feel like if we can't move forward with these people, then it needs to be a declaration that we don't deal with them at all. I mean, because if we can't come to a conclusion like, okay, let's look at the condensing of images. Like if you can't see this and realize that we know that these tiles are horizontal lines, and we know that when we condense them that we get curves. So that alone, this one image, needs to be the fact that somebody sees it says, okay, I can no longer use that argument, that we can take a horizon and we can condense it and then show curvature. Why? Well, because simply we're showing you a horizontal line and it shows curvature. So to me, like, I don't consider myself to be that intelligent. I'm not some super genius, but I can deduce from this that therefore, even if I was a glober, I would say, oh, so even horizontal lines, when condensed, show curve. Therefore, we can't use that as evidence anymore. Like, why can't we reach that point?
He ended up admitting to you though that it was the lens. So I don't, because you said no, there is some distortion here that's curving. It's not straight. And then he said, oh well, then yeah. I mean, I guess it would be the lens. You guess, or it would be? Well, yeah. I mean, it probably would be.
Well, if it is once, then it's one. Then that's enough. If we can show a horizontal line, show curve after being condensed, then it no longer can ever be evidence that, hey, look, this line that appears horizontal, when we do this, it's curved. Therefore, it is curved. No, because we showed you a horizontal line that then was curved, so we can't deduce from that the horizontal line is curved. So to me, it's just like everybody should drop any kind of condensing of images from their repertoire of proofs. But, what's her name? Brenda came on my show again Thursday and says that I'm wrong because, well, sometimes we can when there's a curve that's imperceptible with our eye, we can then condense it and show curves. So therefore, we can still use that evidence. I'm like, dude, you're just clueless. You don't get it. If we're trying to look at a line and say, is this horizontal or not? And then you condense it and say, oh, nope, it's not because it's curved. Okay, but then all we need to do is show you one time that a known horizontal line shows curve, and therefore you can never use it again. They don't even get that. It's baffling to me.
What happens whenever I tilt the camera up towards the horizon and then compress it with my picture, and it shows a concave Earth?
Right. It shows you right here. I mean, you got the U curve, if you will, and then down here you're going to get the N curve, if you will, and it's all based on where your camera position is. And I've showed this by bringing up images. I don't know if I have more here. Let me see. Of things that I've taken images of, and we did it together on live. And I think the biggest one for me. Oh, by the way, I do want to point something out because I did this on my show, and I saw somebody in comments say something about, oh, Jeran just proved himself wrong. So what I did in this. Don't go over there. Go over here. All right.
Hey, Jeran, can I jump in real quick?
Sure.
I'm going to bounce out of here.
Sorry, I forgot. Yes.
My little man just woke up here. I wanted to say real quick about the horizon.
Yes, please.
And it's funny because when you were debating MC Toon about this, and then he actually admitted, yes, you will never see the physical geometric curve of the Earth, and I was like, oh my God, he actually said it. I've only heard him actually admit that, but then when you were debating Ozian or whatever his name is the other day on Modern Day Debates, you kept saying it, and he wouldn't confirm that. And I think he's not familiar with what their script says about it. So in his mind, I think he was like, no, that's stupid. Why would I say that? I can't see the physical curve of the Earth. Like, that just sounds insane. And he wouldn't admit it. And I'm sure there's some other people that have. I've only heard MC Toon say it, but I think in their mind they're saying why would I admit that you can't see the physical curve? Like, that debunks my whole argument that it actually blocks things on the horizon. So I thought it was pretty funny. But yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on. I wish I could stay longer. We got a birthday party to go to, and we'll definitely hopefully do this again and have some of the guests of the panel maybe on our Flat Earth show too. That'd be great.
Yeah, great. Just tell people where they can find you.
Yep, we're available on all podcasting platforms, Whiskey, Beer, and Conspiracy Podcast, or Rockfin, Twitch, Rumble, live show Flat Earth Friday, 8 p.m. Central, WBConspiracies.com, WBCtavern.com. We're on Instagram. It's pretty easy to find.
All right, do appreciate it.
Thanks, man. Thanks so much, guys. Nice meeting everybody.
Later.
Bye-bye.
That was Brian,
Yeah, take care, man.
Big Country. You can find him on WB Conspiracies on Rockfin. All right, so just real quick, showing an image like this where I was talking on my show and I said, okay, if we condense this, and somebody thought that I meant when I condensed this, and they saw this and they said, oh, well, Jeran said that there would be a curve when we condense it, and this is not a curve, this is a diagonal straight line. Well, the problem with that is you're not paying attention. I didn't take any photograph of this. So What I'm talking about is when you draw a straight line on this paper like this, or on this screen. If I went like this and I took a photograph with my phone, that it would show curve. Okay. Same thing with the line, the diagonal line that we saw. There was a diagonal straight line, but if it's taken with your phone, why? Because your phone is like your eyes that all has, or your camera is all has spherical lenses. So people were confused by saying, oh, well, Jeran, you said it would always show a curve, but your diagonal line showed a straight, or your, straight diagonal. Well, yes, because I'm taking, so for instance, this is a drawing. This is not a photograph. So there's no reason why this would deviate spherically, right? For instance, if I grab this, I can
at
tell
least you need to apply an optic compensation, which is something that you do when you have render from computer and when you're trying to mimic reality.
Good.
It's not, it's just an orthographic design. It's perfectly straight.
It's perfectly straight. This is the top of a square. So if I condense this, it's going to show one pixel. It's going to show just the one spot.
Of course.
Of course. It can't do anything else. What else could it possibly do? It's at the same level, and I'm condensing it. Now, with a lens, what's happening is if we take a photo, and I've shown this before, but I guess I can do it real quick. I'll take a photograph of this right now on the screen with my phone. And then I'll bring up that picture, and then I'll show you that when we condense it, it shows curve. And therefore, just from that little bit of evidence that took us 5 minutes to do, anybody who's claiming that any condensing, and I heard it the other day with Sartain and Zerka, where Sartain said, oh, well, we can take any panoramic image. And it's even worse that he said panoramic, because how do you not realize what a panoramic picture is? But he's like, we can take any panoramic picture of the horizon and condense it and always show curve. So that just bothers me that we have to keep hearing this from people when it's completely and totally wrong. It's not, nobody gets it. But again, to prove it to yourself, just go take a picture. I'm taking it right now of that horizontal line with my camera. Oops, my phone, there we go. So I'm taking this picture here. Oops, not video, photo. Okay, so I'm taking a picture of this, of the screen. There we go. I'll send this to myself, and then we will see what I'm talking about. So anything else about the horizon or condensing of images? Austin, you have anybody say that one with you?
I remember because I pasted a nice video. I don't know if you saw it from Mitchell from Australia. He presented this video. I pasted in the chat section, and it's a nice thing because he debunks, or not debunks, but he take in our favor this Earth calculator with simulations that the guy from Germany did. I cannot remember the name, and he pointed out a nice glitch, if you want to see in that way, with the horizon limit that supposedly in the Poltergradle, I cannot pronounce the lake, where I think was
Pontchartrain.
Yeah, but if you open the video, it's gonna be more nice than my explanation.
Yes, I watched it. The Mitchell from Australia one's great. We'll watch
it.
Right
Yeah,
now.
and what is your opinion about that video?
Well, I agree with it. I mean, I don't think that there's. Yeah, how about you?
No. For me, it was a nice, at least a nice information to take into account, because they still use that observation to trying to, at least for the new people that came into the flat Earth, a lot of trolls are still using that. So at least it's in our favor if you want to use that calculator. Just that. And then I remember, and I create a computer simulation when the trolls trying to, because the problem with the horizon and the Fata Morgana and the refraction and all that kind of stuff is that they claim that refraction can lift objects behind a geometrical obstruction.
Right.
And that was never proved. Anytime I have a lot of documentaries that I take the best part and put into my presentations, and I have, for example, 2 control situations where they produce all the phenomena that you can see in the refraction of the atmosphere, and always it has to be level. The observer, in this case the camera, the eye, whatever, the plane of our Earth, and the object that you have observed. It's never be, you cannot lift up object that supposedly is behind a geometrical curve. It doesn't matter how you're trying to set up the experiment. And I remember when the trolls used the case of the butane gas with
Right.
dropping the liquid, the nitrogen, and blah blah blah, and it's all based on the angle of the camera. And there are still there. I mean, when you take a zoom, the cap of the jar is still there, visible.
Right.
But when they drop the nitrogen or this gas, very cold, very cold, that produce like a lens. But always the object is there. So I'm still waiting for a real proof in the control environment where they can show us how a complete abstract object behind some geometrical obstruction can be lift up based on refraction or other method, but in the same kind of idea. And I'm still waiting.
The funny thing about that is that they have to go through such extremes to try to create the effect. And
yes,
see anything like those extremes in nature? Like, absolutely not.
But the object is still there. That's the key. If you make a zoom on, and I have a complete video analyzing that for the Spanish community. But if you make a zoom, you're gonna see. First of all, the camera is bottom. It's like 45 degrees pointing from bottom to the top, which is not the case because in reality you always have a level camera. You don't put the camera on the ground aiming the clouds and you pretend to see an object behind the curve. You always level. But besides that, if you make a zoom, you can still see the yellow little pixel cap.
Mm-hmm.
So it's never hidden completely. And of course, we are talking about millimeters.
Right, let alone mountains
and in some cases,
like
we are talking about
Canagoo.
kilometers,
Right, Canagoo. I mean, the belief is that it's being lifted up and put on the horizon line for you. It's insane.
No, Chicago skyline, 500 meters. I mean,
it's insane.
None of the building can be seen.
Here, this is just a photo I just took, and I was just showing that the date is there, 7/23/107. So I just took that, and then we're just going to grab that and condense it, and it's going to show curve. Okay, so once that has been determined, then at no point in the future ever again can somebody use a photograph of something and say, look, when we condense it, it shows curve. Because all you should be able to say is, yes, it curves horizontal lines. Completely, totally, 100% horizontal lines that can't be anything else, which is what I did on this photo, what I did on the screen, right? By the way, this is a flat screen monitor. It's not a curved monitor or anything. This is completely flat. And I took a photo of it. But when you take the photo of a straight line, we know this is known straight line from above, you're going to get that curve. And if I would have put my camera down low and taken a picture of this stripe going up here, then we would have got the opposite curve. So that's two things that we've already come up with for sure. Horizon is never visible. The second, condensing images cannot be used as evidence of any kind. What other ones have people seen? I can bring up, but that's two things that are on McToon's website that he should pull down, unless he's going to have to argue with me and explain to me why, if I can show you one time that this happens, why you can ever use it as evidence. In my opinion, you cannot, and I would think anybody who's got a logical mind would understand why we've just disproven that line of evidence. So,
I got money that he's just going to repeat his talking points from the first time.
Which is what, though? Maybe I wasn't listening. I was kind of stressed because I just got to this house when that happened. This time I'm going to be much more prepared. I don't see how you can, if I took a known horizontal line, took a photo of it, and now it shows curve, how can you argue out of that at all? To me, it's like you don't have an argument. Your only thing you can say is that you're right, that's not evidence anymore. Because you've shown that a horizontal line, when taken a photo of, will show curvature. Therefore, you cannot use it as evidence of curvature because a horizontal line does that. So we'll have to see. This way it'll be a fun show.
Full on retarded, but what he's going to say is that it's that the horizon curve, but that the level didn't. Well, what's super funny about that as well is, first of all, the level's much closer and at a different angle. relative to the camera.
Oh, you mean the pictures he took? Oh yeah, those are garbage.
But
Yeah,
they never want to talk about how the angles are different,
right.
and one's way closer for starters. So yeah, I don't know. I mean,
it'll be
I remember
interesting.
I was like kind of listening to some of that the most I could when you were talking to him.
You're talking about like this
You ended
picture,
up getting him to just concede. Yeah, he conceded that it could be because it would have to be because of the camera.
right? I mean, and then the picture he shows everybody is like a little tiny screenshot of the thing, but he leaves the table out because the table shows like this gross amount of curve when you condense it.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's funny. So I know we have those two. The Fata Morgana, I mean, the horizon not being an actual physical location at this point is a known thing. So to try and compare things to the horizon or try and put levels up to the horizon, anything like that is kind of ridiculous to me because we're seeing something that is maybe the spot that it is, but we never know. Here, obviously, all these we can deduce that every single case where we've got these, let me actually go back one page. Every single case where we get this, yeah.
I mean, after Jay Tolan observations, there is no any more debate about the Fata Morgana and that kind of stuff, man.
No, I would agree.
I mean,
but I'm more looking for evidence that they're using that needs to be discarded, right? Like, of course, they're not using Jay Tolan, but they are using quite a few.
Horizon. Like they only use we never see the actual geometric horizon, but here's a picture from a high altitude balloon. I promise it shows curvature at the horizon. Oh,
Right.
like, oh, now the horizon's the curve again. So it is the
It's
crux
silly.
of the whole thing.
It's just silly.
Stupid, dude.
Why
It's
they
like-
want to compare it, and then they want to actually have then they'll say that we don't actually see it, but then you'll have Wolfie 6020 doing measurements of how much the horizon has dropped versus his airplane. Has he never seen these images? What if I went and did the math for the amount this horizon has dropped? Then all of a sudden we're not actually only 50 feet off the beach, we're 7,000 feet off the beach. So what then?
And this one, dude, if they would, how would you ever invoke a horizon at high altitude as evidence of the globe when it's noticeably horizontal from 120,000 feet up? And when you zoom in on a plane, it's way worse. It's way bigger of a blurry gradient area.
Yeah, you can't find any kind of line. They actually want to take the amount of degrees that it's down and then claim that that's proof of the globe. First of all, proof of the globe would be every second that you rise up off the ground, the horizon drops of some type. But we don't even see that. We see the horizon rise. So that right away they should know better.
I've been tricked into debating that line though. Like that long distance, it looks like a line because the sky's one color, the ground's one color.
Right.
So you see a line. So like the flat earthers have been tricked into debating where that line is, where it should be, blah blah blah. Zoom in on it. The reason that you see the line, quote unquote, is because it's water and sky. They're different colors. So they start to blend towards each other, and as it gets closer and closer, you're going to see the water at one point, and you're going to be above the water, and that water is not at the exact convergence point, the very central convergence point. So that's why you see, quote unquote, a line until you zoom in on it, and then you see that it's actually this gradient area that just blurs together. Every picture, every single observation that exists ever.
Right. Like this
So that
picture.
just debunks their whole claim about the horizon. There's just no way around it.
Yeah, I'm getting to the point now where I'm like, we are actually, if we could, either eliminate these people completely and say, okay, these people can never be spoke to again because they're just not being honest at all. But this is what's happening: is you're seeing the same thing here with the road. The ground is matching the sky because the reduced angle as we get further and further. And if there was no weeds here, so I guess my question here would be, Austin, if I were to start saying this, the part I would get kind of confused on is why is this scene over here and over here, even though isn't it getting it? So for instance, this ground here where my mouse is, isn't it getting reduced to the same angle that this is? So why is this mirroring the sky, but this is not over here? So that's the only part I don't get. But I think it's just because it's like a similar coloring. I don't know. I mean, I guess the road would be gray.
And there's tons of heat above that road.
Okay, so it's the heat that's right. It's the heat that's doing it then.
It's conditions plus the angle.
Right. Okay.
They're
So then,
always present.
and if this was all road, then we would see a kind of a hard line here, or at least kind of hard. But you would have a line. You would have a line here. You would have the ground matching the sky, and you would think that this truck is floating. That's
yeah,
what
like
they're
let's
basically saying.
pretend that we're looking over the water and someone's going to claim that the Earth's a ball. They're going to say that where the street becomes invisible, that's the curve of the Earth.
Right.
It's retarded.
Yeah,
It's
it's
so
not.
retarded. Someone said, "Can Jeran and Austin say something nice about white people?" Yeah, white people can survive really well in like an apocalypse situation because they don't need much seasoning, so they can survive. But yeah, you see what I'm saying? Like, basically, we'd be looking out over the ocean, and they'd be like, "Oh, where that road turns invisible, that's the curve of the Earth, bro."
Right.
You know the cars on the road.
The reflective properties are actually getting overlooked as well. That's a huge one. I've actually created a similar effect to this on my countertop or on my kitchen table. So it's just, yeah, the heat has a lot to do with it. The reflective properties of the road have a lot to do with it. Obviously, the grass isn't very reflective.
This one
Yeah,
here?
for sure. And if you zoom in, just always zoom in, and you're gonna see a gradient, bruh. Like always, because we've narrowed them down to where they claim, oh, there'd be no horizon on a flat Earth. The horizon's where the sky appears to meet the ground. So are you saying on a flat Earth it'd be all sky or all ground? Oh, never mind. There would be a horizon. They'll say it again tomorrow that there'd be no horizon though. But
Right.
anyway. So then you're gonna have to do that preliminary BS with them every time. They're gonna say, oh, well, what I really mean is there would be no hard, distinct horizon. There'd be no cutoff, distinct line. Like, okay, can you show me a picture where there is, and then just zoom in on it? And it's not. It's always a gradient that's blurry and fuzzy and converging in the distance. And now they've basically trapped themselves to say that the horizon we see on the Earth is exactly what we would see if the Earth's flat. Well, good luck. Now, please tell us where the curve is. I don't know.
Skylar, explain this picture. So this is sideways, I take it?
Yeah, so I'd have my camera like almost right on the table, but it's above the table still. So, and then I actually got really lucky with this because it doesn't always do this, but you can see the part of the table that's like starting to reflect. That's because we actually just recently spilled some water. And so you can kind of see the table and the reflection of the chair there.
No, I actually think this is being loomed up, this fork. It was behind the table, and then it's being loomed up, pushed up into the sky. No, I'm just kidding. Clearly, this fork is on the table. The plate is on the table. We're seeing reflections of those items. Yeah, it's baffling to me what they keep going back to the well on. That one, the 8 inches per mile squared thing is at this point embarrassing. If I hear it anymore, I'm gonna like lose my mind. That's why I'm trying to like stop it before I actually go crazy, because I can't stand it anymore. Like, all it means to me is if you're a glober who keeps saying 8 inches per mile squared is wrong, then you clearly just watch Professor Dave videos. That's your level of evidence. That's your level of research. Is I'm going to watch Professor Dave videos, and whatever he says, I'm going to claim. And of course, the guy is too much of a pompous know-it-all to ever go back and explain to you that he's wrong. So rather than admit that he's wrong, you're going to have to go find another video from another channel explaining why he's wrong. And that if they want to keep going after him, if somebody comes after you and says 8 inches per mile squared is incorrect, then tell them, all right, let's do a bet. Make a bet for whatever you want, $1,000. You go do your mathematics that you think the globe has and do 800 miles, and I'll do 800 miles by 8 inches per mile squared, and then we'll see how off I am. And we had Michael Sartain the other day say that, at 40 miles, he was talking to Zerka, and he said at 40 miles, it's way off. At 60 miles, it's unusable. We can't allow people to be saying shit like that is just so wrong. I don't even know where he got it from. He must have made it up. And I keep going at him. I've been trying to have a conversation with him on Instagram. The guy just cannot get it through his head. Last thing he responded to me was, oh, well, look at here. The ice wall sure seems... I'm like, oh, so now you're just changing the subject, because these guys are so pompous. They're so full of themselves. They cannot allow themselves to admit that they made one mistake.
And they know the human psyche as well. They know that most people are going to look for something until they get the answer they want to hear. And if it's from somebody that has 1 million subscribers and this and that and talks real pompously like that, yeah, that's the end of it. They're not going to go look and see if that guy's right or wrong. They're going to hear what they want to hear, and then that's it to them.
And then because you've taken this, intellectual position where you're like, oh, we're globe believers and we know everything more than flat earthers. We're so much more than flat earthers. Then they cannot allow themselves to at any point say, oh, I was wrong about the curvature of the Earth in 8 inches per mile squared. It is a formula that can be used that will get you close enough for any distance that we can observe. To them, that's akin to saying the Earth is flat. because it's what flat earthers have been saying, so they can't even bring themselves to say just that. Like it's
and it's.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Jeran.
No, go
I was
ahead.
going to say it's crazy because it curves less than all the other calculators. I think that's why Robotham chose it. He's giving them every benefit of the doubt. They took the curve calculator with the least amount of curve.
Yeah,
and that's the one we use, 8 inch per mile squared.
And it's easy for people to use, so why wouldn't they use it? And they're so afraid of it, I think, because they probably plugged in a couple numbers, saw that things are way too curved for what they're, and then they're like, oh, it must be wrong. Flat earthers don't understand it. Flat earthers are dumb. They don't get it. But really, it's
and they know, 90% of the 99% of the people out there aren't going to actually go do the other types of calculations because it's a bunch of numbers and squiggly lines and letters and this and that. They know most people don't even attempt to do that kind of stuff, but 8 inch per mile squared, that's simple.
Well, yeah, it's just simple. It's like it's flat earthers are so stupid that they don't know you can't use a parabola for a sphere.
Right.
So they get to just say that.
Right, and they're just going to keep saying it.
Like if you actually are so incompetent that you don't know that parabolas and spheres are different, you would be really stupid, right? So it's like a talking point that they say. Obviously, they avoid the context like the plague, right? Which is that it's entirely accurate for what we're doing, actually gives you the benefit of the doubt, but it's just a talking point. Anytime there's a talking point that can present a straw man of how flat earthers are stupid, then they're going to repeat it forever. That's the whole thing. That's that's because they can't debate it. So I wouldn't expect him to change it. When they want to pretend like we're stupid, when he was sitting there talking to Zerka, and then Zerka's basically like, dude, what's it would eat you up about this right now? Mm-hmm. He just resorts to like, I would hit him in the face, you know?
Of course.
So like,
yeah, that's all he's got. And like he's like, oh, what's it? He's agreeable or whatever. Oh, I disagree. I mean, they're just like, it's got to be character assassination. It's got to be. These guys are like the most intelligent people in the world. I don't know. It's baffling to me that we have to deal with this. So if you go over here, oops, how am I going to move this over? Okay. So this is me and Sartain having a conversation after his debate where I'm just trying to tell him, I covered your debate. You are wrong about 8 inches per mile squared. I already told you that during our debate, blah, 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 blah. I said, you said it's being off at 40 miles, unusable at 60. I showed on my stream that 1,000 miles it's off by less than 1%. 3,000 miles it's off 1 to 2%. I showed the AutoCAD, trig, figured. You keep making claims about a parabola. Stop listening to Professor Dave. And then he says here, he just comes back and gives me a link and says that I'm wrong. 8 inch drop per every mile squared. And this guy basically saying, it's a glober, says I'm wrong. Says, I don't think you understand. You can tell me what the curve of the earth is using any globe math you want. Then I'll do 1,000 miles and I'll be right. I give him a couple examples and he comes back and says, and this glober is telling you you're wrong. So I'm like, okay, then let's bet, dude. What do I have to do to get you to just admit that you're wrong? It's not even that hard. I'm like, I don't think you get it. Now I have to make a public bet because you aren't getting it. If I am wrong, then bet me $1,000. Pick a distance. You do the globe math. I'll do 8 inches per mile squared. Let's see how off I am. If it's unusable at 60 miles, then it must be horrendous at 80, 180, 880. 880 miles would be way too far to be close, right? Yet I did the math for the 8 inches per mile squared and came up with 516, 266. And I said, let's see what the Glober math shows. And even, they can't even explain this one. Why in Glober math is there 3 different calculations, right? Here it's drop is the r minus square root. Drop is square root r squared plus distance squared minus r. Drop calculated with trig, r over cosine of, so they even get 3 different values. And our value is, what did I say it was? 516, 266. So ours comes kind of in the middle here. Again, to claim it's unusable at 60 miles, but I just did it at 880 and it was fine. And then he comes back again and says, the ice wall looks pretty strong from here. So the guy gave me, I'm telling him, make me a bet, do something, stop saying, and he just won't get it. And then he also said the condensing of images. So I even show here. I said, hey, you keep making a claim about condensing of images, blah, blah, blah. Then I said, so these horizontal lines, notice when condensing they show curves. So if horizontal lines show curve, then all claims to show curves more pronounced when the image is condensed or false. This has been admitted in videos removed by Red's Rhetoric, Sean Uffer, which, by the way, they had that video and there's no longer up. Will you be a man and just admit that you were wrong about 8 inches per mile squared and about condensing the images of horizons? No, because I wasn't. The image is not condensed. Image is not using a fisheye lens. There is no condensing of the image. That clearly shows curvature. I don't even know what he's talking about. What image are you talking about? Where? Condensing images does not show curvature.
Ice wall joke, I would guess.
Yeah, the guy's just off his on one. So those are problems that I have with so far, just those facts. But I know that there's many more that keep getting used. Anybody think of any off the top there? Or we could look at McToon's site. You were looking at that earlier, Zach.
For,
Oh, sorry.
for example, the
Yeah.
other time. Oh, sorry, guys.
You're good. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, dear.
No, maybe it's related. The fact that the only possible solution when you rise up and more, more you can see
further?
yeah, more behind the first obstruction. It's because the Earth is a sphere, and maybe you can reset my statement. But the fact that the
It's so
idea
stupid. Yeah, what you're saying is that they actually think, and they use it as evidence, that you can see further the higher you are, and therefore it has to be a sphere, which
Yes.
is really retarded, okay? Because
Yes.
anybody needs to know that what do you think can see, let's say it's a Home Depot, and it's as far as you can see Home Depot ground, it's flat, it's wide open, okay, great. And you've got laying on the ground a snake, and then you've got a poodle, and then you've got a Great Dane, and then you've got a person. Now, can those people all only see the same distance? Like, for instance, if we put a tennis ball 100 yards away, a football field away on the ground in the Home Depot, can everybody see the tennis ball? Right away, you should know that the snake would not be able to see the tennis ball. The snake's eye, let's pretend a snake has regular eyes and can see. If that's the ground, because they're so close to the ground, is going to create, it's going to ramp up at this, the sky's going to ramp down, and you're going to lose the ability to see items that are farther than a certain mark. Now, the poodle probably won't be able to see the tennis ball. The Great Dane probably would see it, and the human being certainly would. So you can see where on a flat ground, the higher you are, think of the angle that you're seeing the ground, and you are further from it. And as we got taller, if you were a 10-foot person or a 20-foot person, you would be able to see even further. So I probably don't say it much better than Iru, who can't speak English, but what I'm trying to say is
that was a great reset up
Yes,
for
thank
my first statement. But I also did a computer simulation, for example, to prove that with the sun, etc., etc. And of course, it's not in a sphere. We must be see the drop of the horizon, for example.
right, which we don't see.
Exactly.
I mean, and if you do see
That
it, because
is
I say that, and then
the
people say, "Oh, we do see it." Well, yeah, but we just showed you these images which show a drop in the horizon. Does this have anything to do? So this is where people make claims of proving things. Like, remember that they said originally that we could go up and we could calculate the horizon dip, I think is what they call it. And they were saying basically you could calculate how far the horizon is dropped from where it should be, and then from there you can determine how high up you are on there. Well, that's clearly wrong. In fact, I believe. Now I can't remember who the story is. The guy who did Eureka, I Found It. What's his name again? The displacement of water in a bathtub. Anybody? Can't remember the guy's name.
No, I'm not sure.
Achilles? No, I'm thinking of something else. It starts with an A. Arcturus? No, now I'm thinking of stars. All right, whatever his name is, the guy who discovered water displacement or whatever. He also did a calculation to get the curvature of the Earth, but he based it off of where the horizon line was when he was at the ground, and then he went up a hill, and then he saw where the horizon line is, and he made some calculation. I mean, now we can determine that that's even a fake story. It's not even a real story. They would not let that story pass because it can't possibly be true. It can't be true that you can see the horizon line.
Archimedes.
Achilles, thank you. Is it Achilles?
Archimedes.
Oh, Archimedes. Thank you. Just thank
Archimedes.
you. Yeah. So he
You
did
must be
some-
saying a Greek guy.
Yeah, Greek guy. But he basically just went out to the water, they say, and said, okay, there's the horizon line, and there's its degrees or whatever, and then it went up higher, and then saw that it was lower, and then from that determined the size of the Earth. They actually claim that. And it's just insane because you would be able to do the same thing here if you went out during a certain day and the horizon line's back here, and then you went out this day and it's this far down. Well, then you'd be able to determine the sphericity of the Earth because of how far it doesn't even make sense. Obviously, that's not a real spot. Obviously, not a real location. Obviously, it's apparent. And so I'm hoping that eventually because we'll never get anywhere if we keep having to entertain these thoughts as they come across in debates. And I would hope that Globers would do the same. They can take all of our arguments and they can come out and say, here's what you're saying that we know is wrong. and then let us either refute them or agree to them. I haven't been shown anything about flat Earth debating that is completely wrong that keeps being used by flat earthers. Now, Globers can claim it's wrong, but they're not able to show, like we are, why it's wrong, why it cannot be the case. But we cannot just claim that because we see horizon drop from an airplane that it means that the Earth is curved, when it's like, no, we see horizon drop here. You're claiming this is a false horizon. So the horizon is lower, you're saying, than it should be. So then if that happens occasionally, then we can't use it for evidence of it being a globe. Did you say you found some stuff, Zach, from Tune's website or some other stuff? I forgot what you were saying, where you got that stuff from.
Yeah, there was one thing he said in there that things in the air aren't electrically positive compared to the ground.
Oh, you're talking about, so that was in the Dave Weiss points, I think?
Yeah.
He said something about that. I don't remember where it was. Something about, yeah, I mean, so many things are just false. This paper is like, what are you doing? So where was that at here? And then go ahead and explain what you found about the, yeah, right, this is a real picture, sure. I'm trying to find it about, let me go control find, electric, see if it's in there. Claiming gravity is electrostatic. Dave really shows his lack of understanding here. Dave says if you have a negative force and a positive force, they try to attract each other. This is true. Dave says the Earth has a neutral or negative or zero charge. Which is it? Neutral, is it not negative? They are different. Several times he states...
Okay, wait, hold on right there. Neutral is not negative. BS. They're the same thing. If you're talking to an electrician, your neutral runs to the ground. If you're talking about the atmosphere and things like that, they call the ground negative because they're comparing it to the air above. So the ground is a negative compared to the air above it. But in a wire, our neutral runs right into the ground. That's what an electrician would call grounding it out. You have your neutral wire.
Negative is, do you agree? Because negative is actually the process of discharging.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
exactly.
There's no plus and minus sign. It's
no. It's just different
discharge.
amounts of potential.
Yep.
Even the air at 50 meters up is negative to the air that is 100 meters up, but yet is positive compared to the ground beneath it. So it's not like saying positive and negative changes anything. You're just comparing it to something else.
So then the next statement he says is several times he claims that the Earth has a neutral charge. It seems that even though he initially claims the Earth is negative, he winds up on neutral.
Well, yeah, that's the electricians. When you're speaking to a common person or somebody who does know a little bit about electricity, when you say neutral, they know that means that it's grounded out. It's neutral with the Earth.
Got you.
Yeah.
So it would be correct to call the Earth neutral or negative?
I mean, it depends on what
right.
you're. Yeah. If you're talking about the atmosphere, then yeah, it's negative compared to the air above it. Just 1 centimeter off the ground, it's negative.
Okay, got you.
Yeah.
Then he says, Dave says everything in the air is surrounded by a positive charge. This is absolutely false.
And that is wrong.
Okay. And again, we're not even claiming Dave said these things. We don't know that. We're just basing it off of what McToon says here. Most objects have a neutral charge. There is a very low current, 100 volts per meter electrical field in the air. This electrical field cannot be the cause of the downward force since it has little effect on neutrally charged objects and would accelerate.
But what is he saying? Neutral to what? Neutrally charged to what? Neutral.
Right.
Neutral to the ground? Yeah, if you're touching the ground, you're going to be neutral with the ground.
Right.
If you're insulated off the ground, you're going to have more potential because you're surrounded by that potential in the air, and you're gathering that.
Yeah, every object is getting stuff from the environment, getting charged from the environment.
Yeah, and giving to something that it may be touching or just in close proximity to through induction. These charges are all around us at all times, coming off of everything at all times.
And I would go as far as to say that that's actually what mediates the relationship, even density, because what's the mechanism of the density relationship? What causes buoyancy? There's something that's physically interacting. Well, there's always a back and forth between the medium and the object going on,
right?
Just statically. It's like the fundamental, primary mediator.
Mm-hmm.
Everything.
of everything.
Yeah, I mean, they try and hide that too, right? They call anybody who's from the electric universe crackpots, even though it's just all around us everywhere. Like, no, it can't be that. It's got to be gravity.
Yeah, but they are failing all over the place, man. Because every day that passes, there is one more flat earther. So
very true.
Yeah, one more than that. Yeah, and like just go watch the Thunderbolt projects. They're obviously lost in the sauce as well, but they're dunking all over modern cosmology consistently for years.
Which isn't difficult to do, really. I always thought it was difficult now until you start. So let me just bring this one up real quick because it's the one that I've been going on lately. And then somebody messaged me today and they're like, stop saying that because you're wrong because of this reason. I'm like, what? That's not right. So I've just been saying that I think it's hilarious now that we're supposed to believe in gas planets and gas stars, which would mean that gas in space is pulling to the center when we know that gas in space expands. And to me, I just think it's hilarious. They're like, oh, well, you're wrong because they can just say that it's because the gravity is so strong as you put more. I'm like, okay, but look at if we take a balloon, a known balloon, and we let it go up to the sky. Okay, we know that it's going to expand. Why? Because the pressure inside is trying to get out because there's no pressure holding it in. Not that it's trying to get out. It's just there's nothing holding it in, so it's going to get out. So eventually it pops the balloon and goes in every direction. It doesn't pop the balloon and then half of that gas comes back to Earth. It goes into space. So that just tells us that even the huge gravitational pull of the Earth isn't pulling gravity from balloons back to the Earth. It's the gravity's trying to get out. It gets to space and just pops the balloon, goes in every direction. That's what gas does. It tries to equalize. So that alone to me, doesn't that debunk star formation, planet formation? Like at what point, so what size balloon of gas would I have to take to space that when it got up there and it expanded and the balloon popped and then it went out, that it would stop going into space, say, time out, I'm enough gas that now I want you all to come to my center. To me, they don't even have an example of gas attracting gas, yet we're told mass attracts mass. So gas has mass, but I don't find any evidence of anywhere. Where's gas attracting gas? Because I don't see, well, especially in a vacuum. In a vacuum, the gas doesn't care about other gas. It just goes in every direction. So to me, I think that their whole planet formation, star formation, how could that possibly work? If this big balloon of gas gets up and doesn't try to come back to Earth, if the gravity of the huge Earth isn't enough to pull a little bit of helium back, then how is there gravity so strong at some point that pulled all of gas into a sphere? Am I making sense?
No, yeah, that's never been addressed. How does one little particle of gas, which by the way doesn't exist, gas molecules don't exist, but let's pretend they do. How does one pull the other one towards it in a vacuum? Can you show us any empirical evidence that would ever happen? Because
right,
I don't see it.
I don't understand how they even claim that. And again, they'll just whistle right past it or say it must be true because. Again, here's what I think happens, is if we make a claim, even if they agree with the idea behind the claim, even if they say, oh, that got into the point, whatever it is, we have to be wrong because we're flat earthers and we're claiming the globe is wrong. Therefore, they'll just default to, well, you must be wrong, even if they don't know the right answer. They just know we're wrong. And I think that that's their whole goal is that they've been fooled so badly by this religion of theirs that it's like a religion, but different in the fact that religions at least admit their stuff is based on faith, right? So Catholicism or Christianity or Hindu, they all agree that their claims are basically faith-based, whereas then came the scientism religion, and the last thing that they'll ever claim is that they're faith-based. So what they say is, things are facts.
But the cosmology, the heliocentric cosmology is just a transfer of the old books in terms of science.
Like Zoroastrianism, right?
We came from the dust.
Oh, okay.
The dust, when you read in religious mythology, has a meaning, and but in the new cosmology, the dust form planets, and we are stardust, and you have the science priest saying that maybe your right arm is from one star and your left arm came from the other star that explodes. So forget it, Jesus. We are here based on because the stars explode. They are transferring the old story to the new cosmology.
It's just pathetic. It's what they always do. They always have to take and then it's like they don't have any creative ability. So they just keep stealing from people, but it's clearly not the cosmology at all. And it's just a religion. And they're showing themselves more and more and more that even when their religion is proven wrong or shown wrong, they'll just stick to it and say, no, you have to be wrong. It's not possible that I'm wrong. But I guess it's just, and again, like I said, it's akin to them of admitting the earth is flat if they ever give us credit for anything, right? Doesn't matter how many things we bring up, how many things we get right, even this condensing of images, right? Because I brought it up, made a video about it, I've talked about it, keep bringing it up, to them to ever say, you're right, we can no longer use those as evidence, is akin to them saying the earth is flat. Because they have to, the idea is Jeran's so dumb, Witset's so dumb, Ero's so dumb, we're all so dumb that we couldn't possibly tie our shoes. So to them, to make a, whatever you want to call it, that they're, to concede that fact that we got something right that they had wrong is to them the worst sin of all sins. You can't do that. You cannot give Flat Earther credit. I mean, they actually go around and say Witset is dumb. Like, it's not even like, oh, he's wrong. It's that he's dumb. And it's like, okay, well, anybody listening can see that he's not dumb. So it's like, to me, it's like they just are going to make claims so that their audience, and I think most of McToon's audience in Fight the Fat Shirt are like 12 to 17-year-old boys who are just struggling in the world and looking for a place to identify. And they're like, oh, well, as long as I believe in this, I can feel smart and I can make fun of these guys who are flat earthers. So they just like get in there and then that they just listen to McToon and believe everything he says. But it's like anybody saying Witset is dumb, to me, is just purely lying. So they're like, so it's to me, it's like, I don't know how they don't see that. It'd be like me saying, I don't know, somebody who's, I can't even name any. I was going to say, well, flat earth, globe earth that speaks really well. I can't think of any. But let's say there is one. To just claim like, oh, that guy's dumb, when it's like, well, even the fact that he's able to speak like he does tells you he's not dumb. You just don't believe what he's saying because you have a different religion. That's all it is. I just find it baffling that they don't see that they're just destroying their own side. I mean, has anyone seen, are their numbers dropping, like their views and things like that? I haven't been paying attention to that. But
I would have no idea. I mean, they've resorted to now, like, we're tactically lying and we're con men, and so we know the Earth's not flat.
Oh, I saw that on
people.
Where did I see that you're doing it? Oh, they said audit NASA. That's what I saw. I saw a comment today or yesterday that said audit NASA is just a long-term drip grift or something. I'm like, what are these guys talking about? They're like,
yeah, so one of them messaged me through the WhatsApp and was like, you're just trying to make a living. You're making a living off of lying to people about auditing NASA. I'm like, oh, buddy, I'm like many hundreds of dollars in the hole for audit NASA, bro. All the money goes to like this transparent accounts. It makes like, and there's basically been no money. I don't even know, what are you talking about, bro? And then they're like, oh, you don't have the right to audit them.
Yeah, that's what
it works in our benefit, though. I think it works in our benefit long term. Like normal
I'm pretty sure the First Amendment gives you that right.
Yeah, I started citing Supreme Court rulings about that. It's like, dude, there are Supreme Court rulings that just point blank say that like the First Amendment is so that we can expose government corruption. And that's like what it says in the Supreme Court.
What do you think about courts? Do you think that sometimes courts are not compromised? And I say that because they just passed recently a law, or I think it's going to become law or whatever, that no longer can states keep you from having a concealed carry weapon. And to me, that's just like so.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's like so all the, there's only like
so many states are going to constitutional carry now, where you can actually open carry.
Yeah.
That I think this is their way of stopping all the states from doing that.
No. They're saying that so in like 7 states, California being one of them, you're not allowed to conceal carry unless you go through all this paperwork and they have to do all these checks and everything. Somebody sued,
that's unconstitutional.
Yeah, somebody sued it being unconstitutional, and they came back that, yes, it is unconstitutional. So now all these states like California, and I don't remember the other ones that there are, that you can't carry a weapon, you can't conceal carry, are going to start allowing it. So to me, it's just like weird. Sometimes the courts seem to be legit.
Well, they've been doing a lot of this stuff. It's like super leaning right, the Supreme Court. Their last few major things, Roe v. Wade,
right.
The gun stuff, all this stuff.
Affirmative action.
I think it's, affirmative action. I think it's to boost the numbers on the left. They know that it's going to be a landslide this next election. They're already doing all the pre-polls and all this stuff. and they're giving the left more reasons to be up in arms to come out and vote left.
I have a much more nuanced take on this. Like, I don't think that would make sense to do it for that reason alone. Like, in the sense of giving people like immense amount of freedom, like encouraging concealed carry. That's not good for the government. That's terrible for a government that's power hungry. Like,
it's the worst.
What because I've been looking a lot into this here recently for something else, and I did this with free speech as well. What you find out is actually the Supreme Court rulings are usually hella based, bro.
Yeah, I've
like
seen that too.
90% of them. I mean, there are some things that I would stand right up with the Supreme Court judges and debate them that they're wrong, but usually it gets tried, and then there's distinguishment rulings, meaning they're like, okay, well, we agree with the general sentiment, but let us distinguish our ruling a bit. Then there are those that don't agree. There are those that do agree, and they compound off each other with more individual cases that bring new questions to the table. And when you really start reading through it, you're like, these judges are not stupid.
Right.
Now, some judges kind of are stupid. Like my federal magistrate judge, just not on my like high level motion, but like she may have actually not been stupid. I'm not saying there's no corruption, but I guess what I'm saying is you may be surprised it's not as corrupt as you think. I 100% am no longer an anarcho-capitalist, and I used to be. I think that's one of the only things keeping this country from just imploding at this point. Basically, the judge is a moderator, and two people go in there and debate. So, Jeran, if you're moderating, you were like, it was so hard not to jump in that one debate for the flat earther. But you can't because you're the judge. That's what the judge is. The judge can't jump in and be like, you could get off of this if you'd say this. He has to just sit there and respond to
let people hang themselves. Yeah, people that he likes even. He can't.
Right.
Yeah, he's not supposed to show any favor at all.
Well, that's low-key based, though, because that's fair.
And there is corrupt judges. We know that. But overall, I do think that there are some people that if you bring the right arguments and you actually attack the right or actually bring up or reference the right part of the Constitution or the Bill of Rights, I think you can get some things moved in the right direction.
Yeah, I think it's like everything else. You're going to find it's so big, the judicial branch of the federal government. You're going to find good people and you're going to find bad people.
Right.
Yeah, but this is what the real problem is. No one knows anything about this stuff. No one fights it. Mm-hmm. The most they'll do is pay 10, 15, 20 grand to an attorney, think that they're going to take care of it. Well, they're in a little private club called the bar. So the real problem is this like wall of knowledge that no one knows, because even if there's a corrupt judge, bro, there's an appellate court, which is a panel of judges above them, and their entire job is to find what that judge did wrong. Right. And that judge never wants to be the person that got overruled. It's because no one fights stuff, bro. No one fights the constitutional grounds with well-written motions that are research backed by Supreme Court cases and then push up to the appellate. No one does that. 95% of people take pleas.
Is there a cost involved that maybe keeps people away from doing that?
Well, most people are like, the saying is, he who represents himself has a fool for an attorney.
Right.
So like they keep you so scared of the idea of like defending yourself. Well, then it does cost money. The appeal is not that much. It's like $30 or something. And it's if you're paying attorneys is where it gets expensive. But of course, it's time-wise, it's expensive. You have to write those motions. It's no joke. You have to write a very particular, very articulate, sequential, supported by cases. You have to do enough research to know that you're not bringing up an old case or whatever.
Right.
So that's why people can't do it. It's not easy. It's definitely not easy, but that's where the corruption comes from, is that no one's doing anything, and then 95% of people take the plea, and then the people that are in there as attorneys are all in a club. They work together, and they're like, my client's a little behind on the money he owes me. Let's push it over to this prosecutor that's going to hang him until he gets caught up. Maybe we'll bump it back down the road to this weaker, newer prosecutor that won't be able to win. They do stuff like this in a club. So that's the corruption. The corruption's not the law itself. That's my long way. That's my like nuanced take. The more you research the Supreme Court cases, the more you'll be like, wow, they're low-key right about like 85% of their rulings, and they have very articulate, intelligent reasoning for it.
Right, because if they were corrupt, they could just say anything, right? And they could come out and say, well, should we be able to allow concealed carry? And they would say, no, you can't without doing all this for this reason in this case. And they would be able to get things pushed towards the direction that the government wants them. But to claim that now these states that have no concealed carry will be able to do it eventually, to me is just such a win for people, because I'm a big believer in that if people carried Second Amendment. Oh, by the way, we should go over to Rockfin. I said an hour, and we've already been doing 2. Let me check real quick over here. And but anyway, I'm just a big believer that in the Second Amendment that I think that if more people carried, we would have less crime. And so when I see the court do something like that, I mean, that's the one thing. If we didn't have guns, I'm not sure this country would be where it is for sure.
Oh yeah, you just go look at the statistics. I mean, it's not, and these are their statistics, and they wouldn't want them out. But you look at all these places where it's real hard to carry a firearm of any sorts on your persons, walking about in public.
Mm-hmm.
Chicago, San Francisco, New York, Philadelphia. These are all the highest crime areas in the country.
Yep. And it's where, I mean, things are going on right now. I don't know if people have been watching news about California. There's just entire gangs of people that go into stores. And it doesn't have to be a gang. It could be one person. And I noticed this was a problem when I was a store manager at CVS. And I hate to say this out loud, but I don't care about CVS, so I'll say it anyway. But they actually, with Longs, we used to chase criminals or chase, shoplifters and get our products back. And then as I became a store manager with CVS, they just basically outlawed that completely. And they flat out tell store managers and employees, if you go after somebody who steals anything from you and you are injured at all, you are tripped, you fall down, you break your arm, you get in a wrestling match with a guy and he breaks your finger, whatever, they will fire you. So right away you're like, wait, what? And they're like, yeah, because to them, a bottle of vodka is cheaper to let that go out the door than it is any injury to any employee who then costs time and money and doctor bills and et cetera, right? But what they don't realize is what that does is eventually people catch on. Right. And
and they're like, I'm just going to go grab this and walk out the door and nobody's going to do anything about it.
Right. And that's what happens in California now. You see people go into like a Walgreens with a garbage bag and just start dumping the shelves into the garbage bag and nobody does a thing. It's insanity. And it's like, if somebody had a gun, and I'm not saying, well, it's hard to say in this, but when you get to this point, it's like those people wouldn't do that if people held guns. So they just feel very confident in doing it because they know nobody's carrying. They know the store can't do anything to them. And they know that police probably don't have time to go watch videotape and try and track down who this guy with a mask is or whatever. So it's crazy, but you're right. It is in these states. I've never seen it as bad as it is in California now. Neiman Marcus and these places will just have gangs go in there with sledgehammers, smash glass cases, whatever. Just take product, leave.
And isn't a lot of it, even if they do get caught, they get out with no bail? I know it's like that in Illinois now.
Not with guns. I don't know about guns, man. Like guns are intense. I will say this is the real problem, bro. There's this new thing called switches. Do you know what switches are? They put switches on pistols now, and it turns them into automatics.
No, I didn't know.
They got a
Yeah,
switch on the.
I've
They got
seen
a
stuff
switch on
like
the
that.
blicky. Yeah, they got switches on the blicky, Zach. All right, so you're gonna have an illegal strap, and you're gonna throw a switch on it because it's illegal anyway.
Right.
Oh, and you're creating way more of a problem banning legal guns. Way more of a problem because now you're going to have crazy illegal straps with bodies on it.
Wait, are you saying that criminals are not going to turn in their guns when it's announced that we should all turn in our guns?
No,
Did
they
you
got
see that father? That one father, he came out and he spoke to a city council that was trying to get rid of guns. I forget even where it was. And he's like, you know what? You pass the law.
Wait, was it a black guy?
I do
remember.
I'm a law-abiding citizen. I'll turn mine in. But you know who's not going to turn them in? These criminals down the street that are robbing people. They're not going to go turn them in. So all you're going to do is make it so they know nobody is armed, and they're going to be even more abrasive.
Even worse.
Let's slide over to Rockman so we can talk about the switch on the Blicks.
Okay, let's go. Let's go over there, guys. Thank you very much. If you're at YouTube, I don't see any super chats. That's okay. If you were waiting to come over to Rockfin, we appreciate that. Rather than giving your money to the beast, over here it is much better spent. And then we've got free speech over here still for as long as that'll last. So come on over. I'm going to put the link in the chat, and we'll see you guys over at Rockfin for the remainder of the show. Thank you very much for being here. And we'll see what we got. We have 137 on Rockfin. Let's get it to at least 250. 250. Let's get another 113 people over there.
251.
251 says 251.
333. 333. Everyone pop on over to Rockfin. Don't let me down. Links in the chat.
Austin will just sit there and watch the screen if we don't get to 333.
I'm muting everyone.
All right, we'll see you guys over there. Thanks so much. See you on the flip side, and I'll put the link in the chat if I can find it over there. All right, there's the link, and I'll post it another couple times, and we'll see you guys over there. Till then, peace. All right, we are good. Now you can talk about all the strap stuff you want. Austin, go ahead.
Yeah, man. Have you guys seen the switches, man? They're kind of crazy, bro. So like you have your pistol, obviously, and in the back of